Matapos mabisto ni na Congresswoman Bernadette Herrera, Congressman Sergio Dagook at Congressman Wilbert Lee ang mga sponsored ng 2025 department budget na sina Angelica Co, Janeth Garin at Stella Kimbo. Taong bayan nanindigan na dapat pakasuhan ng kasong kriminal, sibil at administratibo ang mga tiwaling opisyales ng gobyerno. Tunay na may hangganan raw ang lahat at hindi pwedeng makalagpas ang mga taong nagrurunong-runungan sa batas. Ito ang naging panawagan ng samahan ng mga ilang abogado at independent organization na matapos maisiwalat sa deliberasyon ng 2025 budget na karamihan sa mga aligned project ng administrasyon na hindi naman raw natutupad. Sa halip, nagmumukhang kawawa ang mga Pilipino, lalo na ang mga may hirap nating kababayan. Dapat raw kasuhan ng patong-patong na criminal charges, administrative case at civil cases ang mga kongresistang nagsinungaling sa nasabing plenary session ng Congreso. Sa nasabing pagpupulong kamakailan, tila bistado ang hindi makasagot na si Kimbo. Matapos masukol ng katanungan ng Congresswoman na si Bernadette Garin patungkol sa mga tila pera ng taong bayan na hindi raw alam kung ibinubulsa na raw ba ng pamahalaan. Kasunod rin ito ang tila hindi makasagot ng BHW Party List Representative na si Angelica Co matapos siyang tustahin sa mga katanungan ng kongresistang si Wilbert Lee patungkol sa tila Department of Health budget na hindi naman raw naa-align sa kung ano ang kapakanan at kailangan ng maraming Pilipino. Pagpapatotoo pa ng kongresista, pati raw gamot sa anti-rabies sa aso, nagkukulang raw ang gobyerno. Pati na rin ang controversial na tapatan ni na Congressman Sergio Dagook at Representative Janeth Garin kung saan ibinulgar nito na maraming magsasaka ang hindi nakakatanggap ng subsidiya mula sa Department of Agriculture at ang karamihan dito tila may mga proyekto pero hindi naman raw binibigyan ng pondo. Karamihan pa sa mga nasabing irigasyon, hindi raw itinatapat sa kung ano talaga ang dapat gawin ng mga nasa gobyerno. Paano raw ito napapalagpas ng maraming mangbabatas kung saan bukod sa harap-harapang kasinungalingan, tila lantaran na di umano ang pagnanakaw ng ilang mga nasa pamahalaan. Sa mahigit sa 6 na trilyong pisong budget para sa taong 2025, tiyak raw na marami na naman ang mabubusog na buwaya at tila naglipana na naman ang mga di umunay magnanakaw na kongresista. Narito at panoorin ang buong detalyadong balita kung saan nanawagan ang taong bayan maging ang ilang mga veteran lawmaker na sa harap-harapang kasinungalingan ng mga mambabatas sa natapos na plenary session. Nanawagan na ang ilan sa mga matitinong kongresista na kasuhan ang ilan sa mga tiwaling opisyalis ng pamahalaan dahil sa harap-harapang kasinungalingan nilang ginagawa sa taong bayan. Narito at muling panoorin ang mainit na tagpo sa plenary session kung saan nabisto ni Wilbert Lee ang kasinungalingan ng ilan sa mga departamentong katulad ng DOH patungkol sa kanilang budget na tila pati ang pangangailangan sa ospital ng mga Pilipino ay hindi na nabibigay ng gobyerno. Ang kasinungalingan ni Janeth Garin na nabisto ni Sergio Dagook at mang mainit na tapatan ni Congresswoman Bernadette Herrera at Stella Kimbo. Mga kongresistang kapanalig ng gobyerno, bistado sa kani-kanilang mga baho. Narito at panoorin ang full video.
Also a management of cash question dahil at the end of the day, nangungutang nga tayo dahil kulang yung pera natin eh. So paano kung biglang may magandang programa ang isang departamento? Can we assure them that there's cash? So bigla tayong we earmark this certain, ini-earmark natin ito sa bawat use niya. Kasi gusto nating i-make sure that the money is there at lagi siyang pwedeng gamitin. Tandaan natin, if yung humihiram ng pera ang may control kung anong ibibigay niya, then magdadamot ako ngayon sa pagbibigay kasi ginagamit ko eh. So they have the control eh. If you have the control, Diba? Kunwari, ikaw ang may control ng pera. Kung ano ang pwede mong gamitin at hindi. Tapos may humihinging ahensya sa'yo. Kung ginagamit mo yung pera, hindi ka magiging generous sa ahensya ibigay kahit mayroon silang tamang programa. Kasi, you're making use of the cash available.
Maganda lahat yan, Madam Speaker. But again, ang end balance halimbawa as of June 30, 728.785 billion pesos. So malaking amount of funds. Isipin na lang po natin kung lahat po ito ay pinagsak natin ngayon, lahat sa mga ahensya, sa totoo lang po, mabibilaukan silang lahat. Hindi nila kayang ma-absorb lahat ito. So may ganun din na problema. So that is actually part of the mandate of our National Treasury, part of the mandate of the DBM. Kailangan nilang i-manage yan. So they cannot just flood all of these agencies with cash. So yun po, that's how we understand the cash management mandate of these agencies, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, cash management does not mean gagastusin mo yung pera pag hindi ginagamit. There's a difference, Madam Speaker. I never said na i-flood natin ang agencies. I'm just simply saying, you cannot use the money that's particularly earmarked for a certain project. Sinaad natin sa batas.
Pero again,
I did not say na i-flood natin sila. But I'm saying, tama po ba na ginagamit natin yung pera na sinet aside ng isang batas na hindi pwedeng gamitin? Malinaw po ang batas. Bawat section, andito po yan, makapal po yan eh. Ilan ang earmarked revenues natin? Nakaspecify doon, nandun lang siya pwedeng gamitin.
so
Very
again,
specific. Alam ko po yung sinasabi niyong one fund concept. Do you know the history of one fund concept when it started, Madam Speaker, Madam Sponsor?
what is the question?
Yung one fund concept, because yan po yung sanina sinasabi niyo na ito yung cash management, may one fund concept na yun ang sinasabi ng DOF na dun ginagamit. Kaya balikan natin yung history ng one fund concept. Ano ba ang pinanggalingan ng one fund concept, Madam Speaker, Madam Sponsor?
Please enlighten the body, Madam Speaker.
Galing po yun sa Presidential Decree 17, Presidential Decree pa yon during the time of President Marcos. Na lahat ng dormant accounts, yung mga off-budget accounts, yung mga lying around funds, yun ang pinagsama-sama. Wala po dong nakasulat any mention of earmarked revenues. At since 1977 pa po yung Presidential Decree na yun. Hindi pa po na-amend or napalitan ng panibago. Ang sa akin naman, gusto ko lang ilagay sa tama. Pwede naman natin lagyan sa special provision kung talagang gustong gamitin itong pondo na to. Pero ang tanong ko, hindi ba dapat natin malaman sa Kongreso kung saan, kailan hiniram yung 700 billion? Kunwari may 700 billion, anong portion ng 700 billion ang hiniram? Hiniram para sa anong bagay? Tama ba na walang report sa atin na hiniram yung perang to? Tama ba na hindi nag-report sa agency? Kunwari, ako si DICT. Ang alam ko, meron akong 24 billion. Tama ba na hindi magpapaalam sa kanila? Pwede bang hiramin namin ang cash na ito para magamit namin sa ibang bagay?
As you know, the meaning of savings is now different. Today, it now refers to balances of any released appropriations which have not been obligated as a result of any of the following: A, completion, final discontinuance, abandonment of a program, or B, implementation of measures resulting in improved systems and efficiencies, etc. So today, in other words, hindi na siya kinocompute for all. Yun na ngayon ang practice ng DBM. So if there is a number that you have in mind, for example, do you wish to know unutilized appropriations for the entire government? Is that what you wish to know?
Madam Speaker, parang di naman po nagbabago yung definition ng overall savings. Yung savings naman talaga is, as you said, yun ang definition ng savings natin. At kaya nire-reflect yun kasi ito yung mga hindi nagagamit, like you said. And then nire-report kasi yun and it's being transferred to other agencies. Ang sa akin, I'm looking for repertorial. They have to report it to us, just like before. For example, Ang overall savings natin in 2020 is 3.5 billion. That's why it's also significant eh. And then for all those savings, nakalagay dyan kung saan tinransfer sa bawat agency. Pag sinabi mo kasing savings, transfers from each agency na transfer ang savings ng bawat isang ahensya, pupunta ngayon sa overall savings. And then yung overall savings, it's a transfer to.
Madam Speaker, it can be provided, but they don't have the figures now.
Madam Speaker, yun po yung point ko. Bakit nawawala yung report ng overall savings? Dapat nakikita po natin yon dito sa Kongreso kasi savings po yan na hindi na po alam ng Kongreso kung saan napupunta. And it's part of our obligation to know where these savings are. Saan nanggaling? Kasi that's where we see how efficient. Kung baka pwede pong isubmit sa atin today para makita po natin.
Ang pagkakaiba, Madam Speaker, today is that the agencies themselves use their own savings. So, they can modify on their own. So, hindi katulad dati na nililipat sa ibang ahensya.
And does this mean hindi siya nire-report sa
No, pero, yes. So, but as a result of that change in practice, kaya nagkaroon din sila ng ibang pagre-report. But tama po yung observation ninyo. And I think that is a very important point. Hindi naman dahil nag-iba ng practice ay nawalan na sila ng responsibilidad na mag-report. So, because of that, they will submit report on savings. They will provide the report okay, but henceforth, they will include it in the DSF moving forward. But you will submit within the week to the Committee on Appropriations and we will copy furnish all members.
Yes, please, Madam Speaker, kasi napaka-importante po na alam natin how efficiently they're using. Napakadaling mag-declare ng savings kung bibigyan natin ng blanket authority ang departments to use the savings and use it whenever they want or augment something without passing through Congress. E di i-bloat na lang palagi yung bidding, yung ABC. Tapos magdadive. You know, this is not acceptable, should not be acceptable to us. That's why we need those reports. Kaya sana po within the week, or sana nga within the day or hanggang tomorrow para naman po mapag-aralan, Madam Speaker. Anyway, my next question refers to, dito na ako sa, alam naman ni Madam Sponsor ito, yung tungkol sa earmark revenues. Madam Speaker, sa pagkakaintindi, can you define earmark revenues through you, Madam Speaker?
Earmarked revenues, Madam Speaker, are identified revenues required by law to be used for designated activities, benefits, or purposes which can be either classified as use of income or special account in the general fund or SAGF.
Nung po nag-interpolate tayo, sinabi po sa akin that the cash isn't available because the cash is being used. Madam Speaker, Madam Sponsor, tama po ba na pwedeng gamitin ang earmark revenues ng national government wherever it pleases?
Yun ang practice po ng natin. But let me explain.
Madam Speaker, yung tanong ko po, hindi kung practice siya or hindi. Tama po ba na ginagamit natin ang earmarked revenues for other things other than specified in the law?
Madam Speaker, if I may be allowed,
Yes.
parang po siyang, if I may use a comparison, parang pong kung tayo po ay nagde-deposito sa isang bangko, nagdeposito tayo ng 100 piso, iniwan natin sa bangko yung ating 100 pesos. Habang hindi natin kailangan yung 100 pesos na yan, ini-invest ng bangko yung 100 pesos na yan. But at any point in time that we demand 100 pesos plus the interest, dapat ibibigay sa atin ng bangko yung pera natin. At any point in time that we want it, it must be available. So ganun po ang konsepto ng earmarked revenues. Congress earmarks a certain portion, inokolekta ng ahensya ang revenue, dinedeposito sa treasurer, habang hindi ginagamit ang cash, gagamitin muna ang cash sa pagpapatakbo ng buong government kasi po ang pamongolekta ng buwis hindi naman po January 1. Meron na tayong buwis. Paano natin babayaran ang sweldo ng ating mga page, ang sweldo ng mga government employees? Wala po tayong ibabayad sa inyo na sweldo kung hindi natin gagamitin na ang cash na yan. Pero at any point in time that an agency demands those earmarked revenues, the Treasury must be able to make those funds available. Ganyan po ang ibig sabihin ng earmark revenues.
Madam Speaker, saan po nakasulat na ganun ang ibig sabihin ng earmark revenues? Na pwede siyang gamitin pag hindi ginagamit pa. Kasi malinaw naman po, earmarked accounts and funds are not, the legal basis of an earmark revenue could be a law, a presidential decree, or international agreement. Bawat earmark revenue may batas. At walang blanket authority doon na sinasabing pwede mo munang gamitin habang hindi ginagamit ng agency. Gusto ko lang po makahanap ng legal basis mula umpisa. Asan po ang legal basis na sinasabing pwedeng gamitin ang pondo na in-earmark natin for another thing? Kasi yung cash naman hindi pa ginagamit ng ahensya. So hiramin ko muna. Paano kung hindi ko na may balik? Paano kung hindi na tayo makautang? Hindi po ba pag regular ka na tao, ginamit mo ang pera na hindi para doon? Qualified theft na to. O kaya, pwedeng technical malversation of funds if you use it for another thing.
Ang tawag po dun sa libro ay Book of Accounts. So, may Book of Accounts at nandun naman po maliwanag ang balanse. So, at any point in time na kung na-question...
Madam Speaker, ulitin ko, ano pong batas ang nagsasabi na pwedeng gamitin pangsamantala ang earmark revenue?
So, hindi po ginagamit ang revenue. Maliwanag po yun.
Yung pera, Madam Speaker. Saan po sinasabing batas na yung cash na nakolekta ng isang collecting agency para sa isang bagay na naka-earmark? Kaya po tayo nagpasa ng batas sa Congreso. Gusto ko itong SUF para lamang sa free wifi. O meron na siyang 24 billion na cash na nakadeposito. Pero sabi nga, yung cash na to nawawala na kasi ginagamit siya habang hindi pa ginagamit ng free wifi. Hindi ko po talaga masettle sa utak ko kung paano pwedeng, kung ano, yun lang naman tinatanong ko, ano po bang batas ang nagsasabi? Yung cash na para sa free wifi, pwede munang hiramin ng national government para gastusin sa ibang bagay nang hindi nagpapaalam sa tamang or walang proper documentation.
Madam Speaker, una sa lahat, napag-usapan na natin ito at maliwanag naman na at any point in time na kailangan na ng DICT ng additional funds para sa free wifi, they may request.
Madam Speaker.
Maliwanag po yun at katulad din doon
Madam
sa
Speaker.
fire trucks. So lahat po yun ay pwede. So yun ang sistema po ng paggamit ng accounts sa special accounts in the general fund. Ganun po ang sistema. Pero kung meron pong legal question ng ating kagalang-galang na BH Herrera, nandito naman po ang DOJ, Judiciary, pwede po siyang magtanong ng legal opinion, ng opinion mula sa DOJ because that is really beyond us. Hindi po kami makakapagbigay ng isang legal opinion. Yun ay pwedeng hingin sa DOJ, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker,
Your Honor.
we are the power of the purse here. Tayo po ang nagpasa ng batas. Yung pera na in-earmark natin, mahirap po na ginagamit, tapos pag kailangan na, sasabihin mo, pag kailangan na nandyan. Ano kung wala? Hindi ba ganun yung mga estafa cases? Hindi ba ganun yung mga pyramiding scams? Na pagka umutang ka ng pera, di ba tapos biglang pagkailangan na, hindi mo na makuha. Pwede mo i-demanda yung taong yun. Ang sinasabi mo kasi, at any given time, ang defense mo is at any given time, pwedeng hingin ng free wifi yung budget. Paano kung walang pera ang gobyerno? Sa akin, hindi yung it's readily available. That's not the point. Ang punto dito, pwede bang gamitin para sa ibang bagay ang cash na inalak ng Kongreso para sa isang particular na bagay? Hindi po excuse yung sasabihin natin, available naman pag gusto ng ahensya eh. Anong difference ito dun sa DAP?
Well, ang tawag po dito, Madam Speaker, ang tawag po dito ay cash management by the national government and this is under Executive Order number 449. Yan po ang mandato ng ating National Treasury. So, kung meron pong legal question na gustong pang talakayin ang ating kagalang-galang na BH Herrera, ay pwede naman niyang itanong sa Supreme Court kung gusto niyang talakayin pa ito. But as far as we are concerned, at any point in time na hihingin ng ahensya, ang earmarked revenues na yan, dahil maliwanag po, mas maliwanag pa sa alas 8 ng umaga, ang balanse nila, ay demandable po yan.
Madam Speaker, hindi nga po maliwanag sa pilit ng araw yung balanse. Alam mo yun. Hindi maliwanag kung magkano ang balanse ng mga earmarked revenues dahil natatraffic sa Bureau of Treasury. You and I both know that natatraffic ang kanilang balanse sa Bureau of Treasury because nagagamit ang pera tapos naghihintay ngayon ng balancing or reconciliation. Madam Speaker, this is not a legal question. It is also a management of cash question. Dahil at the end of the day, nangungutang nga tayo dahil kulang yung pera natin eh. So paano kung biglang may magandang programa ang isang departamento? Can we assure them that there's cash? So bigla tayong we earmark this certain, ini-earmark natin ito sa bawat use niya. Kasi gusto nating i-make sure that the money is there at lagi siyang pwedeng gamitin. Tandaan natin, if yung humihiram ng pera ang may control kung anong ibibigay niya, then magdadamot ako ngayon sa pagbibigay kasi ginagamit ko eh. So they have the control eh. If you have the control, diba? Kunwari ikaw ang may control ng pera, kung ano ang pwede mong gamitin at hindi. Tapos may humihinging ahensya sa'yo, kung ginagamit mo yung pera, hindi ka magiging generous sa ahensya ibigay kahit mayroon silang tamang programa. Kasi you're making use of the cash available.
Maganda lahat yan, Madam Speaker. But again, ang end balance halimbawa as of June 30, 728.785 billion pesos. So malaking amount of funds. Isipin na lang po natin kung lahat po ito ay binagsak natin ngayon, lahat sa mga ahensya, sa totoo lang po, mabibilaugan silang lahat. Hindi nila kayang ma-absorb lahat ito. So may ganun din na problema. So that is actually part of the mandate of our National Treasury, part of the mandate of the DBM. Kailangan nilang i-manage yan. So they cannot just flood all of these agencies with cash. So yun po, that's how we understand the cash management mandate of these agencies, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, cash management does not mean gagastusin mo yung pera pag hindi ginagamit. There's a difference, Madam Speaker. I never said na i-flood natin ang agencies. I'm just simply saying, you cannot use the money that's particularly earmarked for a certain project. That's sinaad natin sa batas.
Pero again,
I did not say na i-flood natin sila. But I'm saying, tama po ba na ginagamit natin yung pera na sinet aside ng isang batas na hindi pwedeng gamitin? Malinaw po ang batas. Bawat section, andito po yan, makapal po yan eh. Ilan ang earmarked revenues natin? Nakaspecify doon, nandun lang siya pwedeng gamitin.
so
Very
again,
specific. Alam ko po yung sinasabi niyong one fund concept. Do you know the history of one fund concept when it started, Madam Speaker, Madam Sponsor?
what is the question?
Yung one fund concept, because yan po yung sanina sinasabi niyo na ito yung cash management, may one fund concept, na yun ang sinasabi ng DOF na dun ginagamit. Kaya balikan natin yung history ng one fund concept. Ano ba ang pinanggalingan ng one fund concept, Madam Speaker, Madam Sponsor?
Please enlighten the body, Madam Speaker.
Galing po yun sa Presidential Decree 17, Presidential Decree pa yun during the time of President Marcos. Na lahat ng dormant accounts, yung mga off-budget accounts, yung mga lying around funds, yun ang pinagsama-sama. Wala po dong nakasulat any mention of earmarked revenues. At since 1977 pa po yung Presidential Decree na yun. Hindi pa po na-amend or napalitan ng panibago. Ang sa akin naman, gusto ko lang ilagay sa tama. Pwede naman natin lagyan sa special provision kung talagang gustong gamitin itong pondo na to. Pero ang tanong ko, hindi ba dapat natin malaman sa Kongreso kung saan, kailan hiniram yung 700 billion? Kunwari may 700 billion, anong portion ng 700 billion ang hiniram? Hiniram para sa anong bagay? Tama ba na walang report sa atin na hiniram yung perang to? Tama ba na hindi nag-report sa agency? Kunwari, ako si DICT. Ang alam ko, meron akong 24 billion. Tama ba na hindi magpapaalam sa kanila? Pwede bang hiramin namin ang cash na ito para magamit namin sa ibang bagay?
So, Madam Speaker, again, babalik po ako dun sa aking analogy earlier. Ang bangko niyo po ba, tuwing ini-invest yung 100 piso na dineposito ninyo, ay tinatawagan ba kayo para
Madam Speaker, kung ako po ay hindi nag-authorize, pwede ko pong sabihin sa bangko, huwag niyong galawin itong certain portion na to. Because tandaan nyo, hindi mo pwedeng i-relate sa bangko to. Batas ito. May blanket kang pinirmahan sa bangko. Nung nagdeposito ka, alam mo na pwede nyo gamitin para invest. That's part of the contract you paid for when you opened the account. Pero ito, batas ito na pinasa natin na earmark ang certain fund for a certain thing. Wala tayong authority na binigay doon sa ating batas. O habang may cash, habang hindi ginagamit, pwede nyo gamitin, national government, kung saan nyo gusto. Pag kinapos tayo, gamitin nyo na. O basta siguraduhin nyo, pagkakailangan ko na, ibalik nyo sa akin.
But again, Madam Speaker, what is important is the balance. Paglilinaw lang po kung ano ang balanse ng bawat fund ay intact na intact po yan. Napakahuhusay po ng ating mga empleyado sa ating treasury. Complete po yan. So lahat po ng mga dinadagdag po dyan, lahat ng binabawas, intact po ang balances. Issue lang po because we have a ceiling at every point in time. Today, ang hinaharap natin na ceiling is 6.352 trillion pesos. Can you imagine? Kung pinasok po natin itong 728 billion, mauubos yung 6.3 ng 728 billion ng in-earmark ng Kongreso. So paano po yung mga programa na gustong ipatupad ng ating national government? Yun ang mangyayari dito. How will our national government function kung lahat po ng ating earmarked revenues ay pinasok natin lahat doon sa ating total budget ceiling. So yun po ang napakahirap na trabaho ng ating DBM or TPCC. So yun ang naging, ang ganda nga ng konsepto, di ba, ng cash management. So that's what it is. So in other words, when you deposit money sa bangko, yung the exact 100 pesos, serial number 0001, hindi naman yun yung the exact bill na isasoli sa'yo once you make a withdrawal. Diba? Ang usapan lang natin ay nagde-deposit ako ng 100, at any point in time, you are entitled to 100 pesos, any serial amount, any serial number, plus interest. Diba? Yun naman po ang binabantayan natin.
Madam
It's the
Speaker.
same concept that we are using for cash management under the National Treasury, Madam Speaker.
Madam
And
Speaker,
remind
so with the same,
Honorable that you have 3 minutes more.
Madam Speaker, with the same concept, paano yung mga nagsarang bangko? Dahil ginamit nila yung pera eh. Nag-overuse sila ng pera ng diniposito ko eh. So nung nag-withdraw ko, hindi na mabalik sa akin. Dahil nagsarado yung bangko eh. Like I said, Madam Speaker, again, I believe in the one fund concept, pero mag-amenda tayo ng batas. Isaayos natin. Ano ba sinasabi ko dito ever since all budget hearings? Sayang ang mga pondo sa earmark revenues, sayang ang mga pondo sa off-budget, sayang ang mga dormant accounts. Ilagay natin sa one fund concept, I agree. Pero let's pass a law. Let's amend the PD. Let's amend the presidential decree or magpasa tayo ng batas dito sa Congreso if we really want to allow that. Yun lang po yung aking palaging sinasabi kasi right now, and mag-report sila sa atin sa Kongreso kung saan nila ginamit at kailan na hiniram yung pera. Madam Speaker, hindi na natin alam saan napunta yung pera na ginamit na yun. Oo, nandyan. Pero nung hiniram nila, para kang nagsabi sa any empleyado, ito petty cash natin sa opisina. So ibig sabihin, kung meron akong petty cash dito sa opisina, kung merong mga ilangan sandali, ay hiramin ko lang sandali, ibabalik ko naman eh. Pag nabuko mo yung empleyado mo, is it acceptable? Kung kunwari, nagbigay ka ng pera specific sa iyong staff, para dyan lang yan. Tapos hiniram ng staff mo, hiramin ko lang naman eh, ibabalik ko rin ha. Is that okay? Does it make it okay?
Madam Speaker, it is not the same situation. That is, I stand by my position that accounting-wise po, hindi naman ginagastos ang earmark revenue as long as hindi program, intact po ang balances ng ating earmark revenues. Cash-wise, ay fungible naman po siya. So, yun po ang sistema ng cash management. Kung may problema po ang ating kagalang-galang na PH Herrera, again, of course, she's free to file a resolution, file an inquiry, file or solicit an opinion from the DOJ.
So, Madam Speaker, paano nga pag hindi na ibalik? Paano kung walang pera yung gobyerno? What happens now? Because ginamit natin for other things, pinabayad natin ng utang.
Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleague, indeed they are meeting, and we assure the Honorable
No,
Dagook
Mr. Speaker, with all due respect to the good
Yes,
sponsor.
I will go to that, Mr. Speaker. The meeting is every Wednesday, and the basis of this...
Ano pong criteria po ang tinatanong ko, Mr. Speaker? Kasi marami pong government agency na dumaan na sa scrutiny. Pero basta lang makasagot kung ano-anong sinasagot, kung minsan nagtuturuan, ay masayang po yung... Kung minsan, inaabot kami dito ng alauna ng madaling araw, alas 12. Tapos nasayang lang, we should focus on issues and answers na mapakinabangan ng ating mga kababayan. Ang national irrigation, mapupunta na naman parang dinagat. Oh, I have here a complete picture ng mga lahat ng mga irrigation na nire-report ng inyong satellite office na completed, accepted, may turnover. Oh, pumirma ang mga beneficiary. Hindi nga nila alam yung pinirmahan nila. Tested, pinaran, puntahan mo doon. Nasyonal lang. Walang irigasyon dahil walang tubig. Nasyonal lang ang natira. Para tong water district, pag tag-araw, district na lang ang matitira, wala nang water. Ganito, I have a complete picture. Pagkatapos, nandito ba si Mrs. Lariba? Si Miss Lariba?
Ito ba yung Ms. Lariba?
Siyang taon-taon, last
Mr.
year,
Speaker, Ms. Lariba is in the
nasabit din
field.
tong report na to. Para bang hindi ako taga roon at hindi ko pinuntahan yung area na yon na mag-submit ng mga dokumento na she is lying.
So Ms. Lariba, Mr. Speaker, is in the field office and is not...
In the field or in her air-conditioned office only. Mr. Speaker, distinguished sponsor, mayroon bang pamamaraan ang pamunuan ng National Irrigation Administration to validate the reports of the field personnel? Mayroon bang pamamaraan? Kasi kung mayroon, bakit hindi nila nakita na mali yung nire-report nila, Riba?
Mr. Speaker, I move that we recognize the Honorable Sergio C. Dagook of the APEC Party List for his interpellation.
The Honorable Sergio Dagook of the APEC Party List is recognized. Interpellate response.
Thank you, my favorite speaker, Deputy Speaker. Thank you, Majority Leader. For the distinguished sponsor, yield to some clarificatory and validation of reports. Clarificatory questions and validation of reports issue, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Kanina, Mr. Speaker, narinig ko doon sa previous interpellator, mali-mali yung mga data na nagiging reference ng nauunang interpellator. Bakit po nagkaganon na mali-mali yung mga data? Sinadya po ba yun o talagang nagkamali lang?
Well, Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleague, hindi naman po siya intentional. It just so happened that when this was printed, and that's why it's the NEP, and meron pa naman tayong GAA, that's why we are here to deliberate the budget. At nakita nga ito, kaya lang na-print na at naipamigay na sa atin. And precise for us to say that the GCG and the DBM had already met and agreed on the amendments to page 801 of the National Expenditure Program 2025.
Pasensya na po, distinguished sponsor. Kaya ko nasabi yun. Dahil 2 taon na po ako, binibigyan ng report ni Miss Lariba. No? Yung ng mali na report. Kaya parang napag-isip-isip ko na nananadya yung ibang mga tao dyan sa National Irrigation. I'm talking of National Irrigation reports. Masama po ang loob ko, Mr. Speaker, Madam Sponsor, pero ganito na lang. Nag-uusap po ba, Mr. Speaker, Madam Sponsor, yung Department of Agriculture at National Irrigation Administration in as far as the implementation of irrigation projects is concerned?
Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleague, this DA Secretary is now the Vice Chairman of the NIA Board. And this relationship, we have their commitment that this will be cascaded down to the regional offices so that there is proper coordination and collaboration between the Department of Agriculture and the National Irrigation Administration. Mr. Speaker, the NIA family would like to extend our apologies to the Honorable Dagook kasi tama naman yung mga nasabi niya na merong mga na-irrigate na kulang naman pala sa water supply in some areas in his constituency. Unfortunately, these are matters beyond the control of Administrator Gillian because this happened before his tenure. Rest assured that we have a more active leadership in NIA and DA now, and the concerns, especially on value for money, na ilalagay ang irigasyon dun sa nararapat, nangangailangan at feasible areas will be religiously observed, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, may I just appeal to the distinguished sponsor to just limit the answer to my specific questions kasi inuubos po niya yung oras ko eh. So, Mr.
Please
Speaker,
submit, Mr. Speaker.
uulitin ko po, no? May I reiterate my previous question? Is the Department of Agriculture and the National Irrigation Administration, no, coordinating with each other in as far as irrigation projects is concerned?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. As we have mentioned, the DA head is the concurrent vice chair of the NIA board.
Okay. So, if that is the case, may I ask, Mr. Speaker, ilan pong irrigation projects ang nakapaloob ngayon sa 2025 fiscal year? I'm talking of new irrigation projects. Niyayas the Department of Agriculture kasi kung talaga nag-uusap sila, alam ng Department of Agriculture yan.
12 projects, Mr. Speaker.
12 projects. Dapat Department of Agriculture ang sasagot. Definitely ang NIA alam nila. Trabaho nila yun eh. Now, out of that 12 new irrigation projects, saan po ang mga location yan, Mr. Speaker, distinguished sponsor?
This is 12 new national irrigation sub-program and 12 small reservoir irrigation sub-program. Balog-Balog Multipurpose Project Phase 2 Tarlac, Lebak Integrated River Irrigation Project Sultan Kudarat, Tanhay Bais River Irrigation Project, Manat Irrigation Project Compostela Valley, Libang River Irrigation Project Agusan del Sur, Bayabas Irrigation Bulacan, Ilocos Norte, Ilocos Sur, Abra Irrigation Project Stage 2, UP Integrated River Irrigation Project Maguindanao, Lower Apayao River Irrigation Project Apayao, Imelda Irrigation Project Zamboanga Sibugay, Luzon Integration National Irrigation Project Quirino, Maridagao Kadingilan Irrigation Project, Bagtingon Small Reservoir Irrigation Project Marinduque, Santa Rita Small Reservoir Irrigation Project Western Samar, Bayuyan, Capiz, Cabano, Guimaras, Kalunusan, Bohol, Hibale, Bohol, Tulunan, North Cotabato, Dumulok, Pangasinan, Kalapangan, Small Reservoir, Cagayan, Kabakanan, Ilocos Norte, Lopez Small Reservoir, Quezon, San Felipe Small Reservoir Irrigation Project, and there are small irrigation projects nationwide.
Okay, Mr. Speaker, thank you for distinguished sponsor for the enumeration. What is the main target or purpose of the National Irrigation Administration and the Department of Agriculture in constructing those irrigation projects in general?
In general, Mr. Speaker, the objective of DA and DIA is increased productivity, better yield, and all-season support to farmers.
Better yield. Tama po yun, better yield. Now, ano pong criteria ang nagiging basihan? Kung talagang nag-uusap sila, ano pong criteria ang nagiging basihan na yung mga lugar na yon ang paglagakan ng pondo para sa irigasyon?
Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleague, indeed they are meeting, and we assure the Honorable
No,
Dagook
Mr. Speaker, with all due respect to the good
yes,
sponsor.
I will go to that, Mr. Speaker. The meeting is every Wednesday, and the basis is this.
Ano pong criteria po ang tinatanong ko, Mr. Speaker? Kasi marami pong government agency na dumaan na sa scrutiny. Pero basta lang makasagot kung ano-anong sinasagot, kung minsan nagtuturuan, ay masayang po yung, kung minsan inaabot kami dito ng alauna ng madaling araw, alas 12. Tapos nasayang lang, we should focus on issues and answers na mapakinabangan ng ating mga kababayan. Kasi I'm digging this. Why? Ang hugot ko, ang daming irrigation sa Dinagat Island na kahit sinabihan na ng mga taga roon na walang tubig dito, pinipilit na lagyan ng irrigation. I'm not talking of the present administrator. Hindi ko pa po kilala at hindi ko pa po natingnan yung accomplishment ni Administrator Gilin. Kaya tinanong ko kung they are coordinating. Kasi dapat ang masunod, Mr. Speaker, distinguished sponsor, sa pagpili ng mga lokasyon, should not be the National Irrigation Administration. Kasi taga-construct lang sila. Ang masunod, ang gagawa ng criteria for me, personally, taga-Department of Agriculture, because they are the agency that can determine doon sa ating sinasabi na higher yield, kung ano-ano production, sa kanila po yon ng Department of Agriculture. Baka kasi nabaligtad. Baka kasi yung National Irrigation ang nagdidictate kung saan yung location. Which is for me, hindi po tama. Yun bang criteria sa pagpili, Mr. Speaker, Madam Sponsor, includes yung scientific study na itong area na to ay makayield ng ganito. May cost-benefit analysis ba, Mr. Speaker, to maximize the utilization of our meager resources? Na kung gagastos tayo ng irrigation, 1 million, ito yung return of our investment, ilang kaban. Mayroon po bang ganon, Mr. Speaker, distinguished sponsor?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, there's a cost-benefit analysis.
May I request, Mr. Speaker, for the interest of time, to submit to the office of this representation the criteria used in the selection of the sites sa mga irrigation natin, which contains the computation, scientific feasibility study na consistent, no, with your general objective to have a higher yield. Dapat consistent po tayo kasi pag sinabi natin higher yield, ito yung lalagyan ng irrigation dahil kukunti yung resources natin, makukuha natin yung higher yield because we have a scientific study na ang lugar na to ay makaproduce ng ating tinatarget na yield.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, the NIA and DA family who meet every Wednesday will submit a
Mr.
comprehensive
Speaker,
report.
with all due respect to the distinguished sponsor, for the interest of time, I am requesting the documents. I am requesting the scientific study. I am not asking if they are meeting. Kasi kahit araw-araw pa yan magmi-meeting, pero inaano lang natin, dito ilagay, doon ilagay, walang scientific study. Tapos lalagyan natin sa budget, objective, no? To attain higher yield. Ay hindi po ako maniwala doon. Baka nagsasayang tayo ng pera. Gagamitin lang natin sa ibang project kasi napakarami po natin kailangan gawin. Kindly submit the
We will
scientific
comply, Mr.
study
Speaker.
of those 12 national irrigation at saka yung 24 yung binasa ng distinguished sponsor. Kindly submit the individual study in order to determine kung talagang totoo na pinag-aralan yung lugar na paglagyan na magkakaroon ng higher yield tayo. Because, again, we are maximizing our meager resources.
We will submit, Speaker, including the feasibility study and the cost-benefit analysis of each project.
Thank you for that. Kailan po ma-submit yan bago tayo mag-period of amendment?
Within 1 week, Mr. Speaker.
Ay wala na. Merkulis na lang tayo. Kasi we are introducing, this representation will introduce in the proper time some amendments or maybe special provisions in DAGA with regards to the utilization of budget allocated to irrigation.
Yeah. Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleague, is our distinguished colleague willing to accept a soft copy?
Yes.
Yes, so if
Yes.
it's a soft copy, they can submit within the week or tomorrow because it's voluminous.
Wednesday, Mr. Speaker, Wednesday po yung last natin, period of
Yeah,
amendment.
that's tomorrow, Mr. Speaker.
Gusto ko lang, this representation would just like, to make sure na tama po yung, consistent po yung location ng mga projects na yon with our objective for higher yields. Kasi for me, it should be the Department of Agriculture who will propose na dito tayo, dahil pinag-aralan namin to, maganda yung lupa, may tubig, Kasi kung national irrigation, mapupunta na naman parang dinagat. I have here a complete picture ng lahat ng mga irrigation na nire-report ng inyong satellite office na completed, accepted, may turnover. Pumirma ang mga beneficiary. Hindi nga nila alam yung pinirmahan nila. Listed, pinaran, puntahan mo doon. nasyonal lang. Walang irigasyon dahil walang tubig. Nasyonal na lang ang natira. Para tong water district, pag tag-araw, district na lang ang matitira, wala nang water. Ganito, I have a complete picture. Pagkatapos, nandito ba si Mrs. Lariba? Si Miss Lariba? Siyang taon-taon, last year,
Mr. Speaker, Ms. Lariba is in the
nasabit din
field.
tong report na to. Para bang hindi ako taga roon at hindi ko pinuntahan yung area na yon na mag-submit ng mga dokumento na she is lying.
So Ms. Lariba, Mr. Speaker, is in the field office and is not
In the field or in her air-conditioned office only. Mr. Speaker, distinguished sponsor, mayroon bang pamamaraan ang pamunuan ng National Irrigation Administration to validate the reports of the field personnel? Mayroon bang pamamaraan? Kasi kung mayroon, bakit hindi nila nakita na mali yung nire-report nila Riba? Hindi totoo.
Mr. Speaker, rest assured that the mistakes of the past will not be repeated in the current leadership. That is the assurance that we are giving the Honorable Dagoong. Be that as it may, the DA Secretary and the NIA Administrator will be giving a directive immediately tomorrow, first thing in the morning, to again check on the feasibility of this irrigation project in Dinagat.
Mr. Speaker, distinguished sponsor, with all due respect to the new administrator, no? Isang taon na po siya, last year na budget, si administrator na po. Nag-submit po sila Riba, the same submission, the same turnover doon sa mga kunwari beneficiary na tumanggap. Pare-parehong dokumento. Pinotocopy lang. So, ang ibig kong sabihin, until now, the time of the new administrator, they have no way of validating. Naniniwala kaagad sila doon sa mga field personnel nila na nagre-report. They have no way of validating. Kasi kung binalidate nila, sasabihin nila, huwag mong isubmit yan sa opisina ni Representative Dagoong. Hanggang ngayon, wala. May nilagay pa dito, 15 million na budget, 1 million, tapos na, may accomplishment report. Hindi po totoo to. Lupa namin yung dinaanan. So, I think, no, for the interest of time, Mr. Speaker, I just wanted to make sure na yung pira na dapat magamit natin sa iba, at nilaan natin sa irrigation kasi gusto nating masiguro yung pagkain. Ako, taga-kurente ako. Pero kahit walang kurente, okay na. Basta may bigas tayo. Pero kung yung pang-irrigation, which is the primary source of rice production, kasi kung walang tubig, paano po tayo magkaroon ng abono? Namimigay tayo ng pondo para sa abono. Pinag-usapan natin post-harvest facilities. Anong post-harvest? Wala kang harvest eh. So, ang uunahin natin, paano tayo makayield ng marami? I agree with that. But first, kailangan i-identify natin na tama yung irrigation na i-construct natin doon sa area na makayield ng marami.
We agree,
Hindi yung
Mr. Speaker.
parang shotgun tayo na basta lang may ilagay dito. That's why I am asking yung mga criteria. I am asking yung study. Dapat may scientific study sa lupa, etc. Ay, lumaki po ako sa farm eh. Hindi lang si Alice Go ang lumaki sa farm. Ako din. Lumaki ako sa farm. I hope that can be submitted, Mr. Speaker, no? Kasi isang taon po ako naghihintay at nagpupuyos yung damdamin ko na magsasubmit ng mga report na mali naman. Ako na lang sana ang mag-submit ng report para sa sarili ko eh. Para totoo. Kasi pinupuntahan ko yung lugar na to. So, Mr. Speaker, tatapusin ko na lang yung interpellation ko. Anyway, the main purpose is for the Department of Agriculture and National Irrigation Administration to coordinate para makuha natin yung higher yield na objective. At hindi natin magawa yon kung kanya-kanya ang ating trabaho dahil ibang agency o ito yung project ko. Hindi po pwede yun. Kasi kung yung mag-asawa, ang pag-usapan natin, mag-asawa po yung irrigation at saka agriculture. Kung magkanya-kanya po sila, ay wala pong mangyari sa atin. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, distinguished sponsor. Pasensya na kasi talagang dinidibdib ko to dahil lumaki ako sa farm.
And Mr. Speaker, having no more members of the minority...
Mr.
Mr.
Speaker,
Speaker, we join the minority in their motion to terminate the period of debate. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Kanya na
There's a
ba
joint motion to
nangyayari ngayon
terminate
dito sa
interpolations
atin?
of the proposed budget of the Department
No.
of Health. Is there any objection? The
Mr.
chair
Speaker,
hears
have a
none.
motion ruling,
Let me
please.
question the
Interpolations on
quorum.
the proposed budget of the Department of Health is hereby
Let me
terminated.
question the quorum, Mr.
Mr. Speaker.
Motion suspended.
Mr. Speaker. Dali lang.
Session is resumed. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I now move that we recognize the Honorable Minority Leader, the Honorable Nonoy Libanan, for his turno in contra.
The Honorable Minority Leader is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I move for a few minutes suspension.
Session is suspended.
Daza, you have the floor, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good evening to my colleagues, and thank you to the officials of the DOH for their presence. First of all, please allow me to thank the Secretary and the officials of DOH that despite the many complicated issues and criticisms of many members of the House, they still cooperate with us and in fact have complied with many of the requests of the members, both in the minority and majority. And I have a favorite saying, Mr. Speaker, give credit where credit is due, and I congratulate DOH, Secretary Bosa, and the officials for issuing the no balance billing department memorandum clarifying no copay, no balance billing under the Universal Healthcare Act and other relevant laws. So I thank the sponsor, these sponsors, Congresswoman Ko, Congresswoman Kimbo, Congresswoman Garin, for following up on this very important universal healthcare policy. So thank you so much. And just short question, in line with that, because the DOH has already essentially clarified that poor patients in charity beds or ward beds in government hospitals should have no copay and they should not have out-of-pocket. May I ask the sponsor, DOH and Philip, because it's now policy and because DILG has a seal of good local governance, one of their matrix is health. May I request or get a comment from Philip and DOH that maybe our advocacy of helping poor patients, no copay, no out-of-pocket, which was clarified by this memorandum, shouldn't this be now at least discussed with DILG, with PhilHealth and DOH, to be considered in that seal of good local governance as part of the health matrix for our LGUs?
Yes, that's an excellent idea, Mr. Speaker, our dear colleague. The PhilHealth and the DOH agrees.
Okay, thank you. I'm satisfied. Just as long as the sponsor follows up with PhilHealth DOH, I think there will be substantial improvement in terms of helping our poor patients. Second, in the budget hearing, there were many doctors complaining about when the doctors get accredited by PhilHealth, they were before required to pay 3 years advance membership fee, sometimes 1 year membership fee advance. They clarified to me that there's now a circular saying that when doctors get accredited, they can now just pay 1 month membership fee, just like all other PhilHealth members. Is that correct, Mr. Speaker?
That's correct, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. And I thank PhilHealth for helping our doctors on this particular issue because there were many doctors who were complaining. The other one is, in the accreditation process, doctors are accredited by PhilHealth, but actually these doctors are also accredited by the hospital. So there's a potential streamlining to make it, we have an ARTA law, we're supposed to be implementing streamlining processes, ease of doing business. So okay, Mr. Speaker, may I move to spend just a few minutes?
Mr. Speaker, with the due indulgence of our distinguished Senior Deputy Minority Leader, I believe we're running out of time, and may we request him to proceed with his interpellation.
Deputy Minority Leader.
Few minutes suspension, Mr. Speaker.
Session suspended. Yes. Session resumed. Majority Leader.
Hello. Mr. Speaker, I now move that we again recognize the Honorable Paul Daza.
Congressman Daza, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good evening again. As I was saying, doctors are complaining about the red tape in terms of PhilHealth accreditation. I thank again the sponsors for encouraging dialogue with PhilHealth, and we did that. No less than the Secretary of DOH supports streamlining. He's also an anti-red tape person. So I wanted to ask the sponsor, because doctors are already PRC licensed, they have certification from their specialties, they get accredited by the hospitals. So may I request from the sponsor a response or a commitment on how PhilHealth can streamline the accreditation process for doctors?
Mr. Speaker, the accreditation process for professionals is already on the way or into streamlining. So there will okay. So yes, it's in the process of streamlining already.
Thank you so much to my esteemed colleague, the Honorable Co, for that assurance. I think all our doctors in this country will be very happy with that development. And On the issue on utilization of PhilHealth funds, there was some discussion about increasing case rates of instead 30% but 50% to increase utilization for the poor patients in the wards. What we call, as clarified in the memorandum issued by Secretary Herbosa, why not increase case rates for poor patients so there will be now more funds for all hospitals for medicines, X-ray, and other ancillary services? Because I was told there were already discussions before at the PhilHealth level to do that. May we get a response from the sponsor on the possibility of increasing case rates to increase utilization, specifically for the poor patients who are eligible under the Universal Healthcare Law on no copay, no balance billing, no out-of-pocket?
Mr. Speaker, the increase in the case rates will include the level 1 infirmaries. So, which also includes the benefits of PhilHealth, more or less po across the board.
Okay. Baby steps, that would be an improvement already. But if the PhilHealth will consider that previous proposal about maybe prioritize the increase of case rates for the NBB patients, for the poor patients in the ward beds. Because there were already discussions in the past regarding that, and I was wondering if that's still on the table and if that's something PhilHealth can include in their agenda.
Yes.
But thank you for the response earlier. I think that's already a big improvement. But this is specifically for the poor patients, as I mentioned earlier.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. But yes, the answer to that, to your query, is included.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, I'd like to commend the sponsors for your patience. I know sometimes the debates, the exchanges get heated, and we appreciate your understanding and patience with the members of the minority, because I know sometimes we all get emotional. And I appreciate what the Vice Chair and the Chairman have done to make sure our concerns and issues are addressed. Thank you so much to our Vice Chairs and to the other sponsors, Mr. Speaker. Again, I'd like to thank the Department of Health officials who spent essentially 2 days with us. Thank you so much for addressing many, if not most, of our concerns. And Mr. Speaker, having no more members of the minority...
Mr.
Mr. Speaker, we join the minority in their motion to terminate the period of permanent. So move, Mr. Speaker.
The joint motion to terminate interpolation of the proposed budget of the Department of Health. Is there any objection? The chair
Mr. have a motion ruling, please.
Let me question the
interpolations on the proposed budget of the Department of Health is hereby
Let me
terminated.
question the quorum, Mr.
Mr.
Speaker.
Session suspended.
Mr. Speaker.
Session is resumed. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I now move that we recognize the Honorable Minority Leader, the Honorable Nonoy Libanan, for his turno in contra.
The Honorable Minority Leader is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I move for a few minutes suspension.
Session is suspended.